Every morning, when you look in the mirror, you believe you know the person staring back at you. But what if I told you that this person you think you are is merely an elaborate performance? A mask so well constructed that even you have forgotten you're wearing it. For decades, we've lived as prisoners of a fundamental illusion, the belief that we are who we think we are. But Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human psyche, discovered a disturbing truth. You are not who you think you are. You are exactly who you pretend to be. Jung spent his entire life diving into the depths of the human unconscious, unraveling the hidden mechanisms that govern our behavior. He understood that society teaches us from an early age to construct a persona, a social mask that gradually becomes our identity. The problem is that this mask has become so convincing that we've forgotten our true nature. We live divorced from our authentic self, prisoners of a performance we began to be accepted, but which now defines us completely. Over the next minutes, we won't just explore abstract concepts. We'll dismantle, piece by piece, the architecture of human personality through Jung's lens. You'll discover how your masks were formed, why they control your life, and most importantly, how to recognize and integrate your true nature. Prepare yourself, because the knowledge you're about to receive will question everything you believe you know about yourself. This is a journey into your own psyche, and not everyone is ready for what they'll find there. The law of persona. You are your performance. Jung's first fundamental law. The persona is not just a mask you wear, it becomes you. Every identity you present to the world eventually shapes who you are internally. Jung discovered that the persona emerges as a mechanism of social survival. From childhood, we learn that certain versions of ourselves are rewarded while others are punished. Gradually, these successful performances crystallize into our personality structure. What makes this fascinating is that Jung realized there is no real self behind the mask. We are fundamentally social creatures, and our identity emerges precisely from this interaction between our internal nature and external demands. Consider the story of Theodore Roosevelt. Born as a frail, asthmatic child, he constructed a persona of robust masculinity and unwavering courage. Roosevelt didn't just pretend to be brave. He became genuinely brave through this performance. He practiced boxing, hunted in Africa, led the Rough Riders into battle. The mask of strength he created to overcome his childhood weakness became his true nature. Roosevelt proved that we are shaped by our conscious performances. On social media, we see this on a massive scale. The person who projects confidence on LinkedIn isn't just pretending. They're actively becoming more confident through this projection. The influencer who performs happiness on Instagram gradually rewires their brain to experience more positivity. First tactic. Observe your daily performances. What version of yourself do you present at work? At home? With friends? These aren't false masks. They're fragments of who you're becoming. Second tactic. Conscious performance. If you want to develop a quality, start performing it. Want to be braver? Act bravely. Neuroplasticity ensures that performance will precede internal change. The law of shadow. You are also what you deny. Jung's second law. Everything you reject in yourself doesn't disappear. It becomes your shadow. And your shadow has more power over you than your conscious persona. Jung realized that to maintain a socially acceptable persona, we need to repress aspects of our personality that we consider undesirable. But psychic energy cannot be destroyed, only redirected. The shadow becomes a second self, operating outside consciousness, influencing our behaviors in ways we don't recognize. The more we deny our shadow, the more power it accumulates over us. Examine the life of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Stevenson, a perfect metaphor for the Jungian concept. Jekyll, the respectable doctor, completely represses his dark impulses. But Hyde isn't an external creature. He's Jekyll without the constraints of persona. In real life, we see this in public figures who preach extreme morality and are later discovered in scandals. They're not simple hypocrites. They're people who denied their shadow so completely that it took control in moments of vulnerability. In the corporate environment, the executive who projects total control may have a shadow of chaos and impulsivity. In relationships, the person who sees themselves as extremely generous may have a selfish shadow that unconsciously sabotages their connections. On social media, those who judge others most harshly are often projecting denied aspects of themselves. First tactic: map your shadow by observing your judgments. What most annoys you in others probably exists in you in repressed form. Second tactic: gradual integration. Don't completely deny your negative impulses. Find constructive ways to express them. Aggression can become assertiveness. Vanity can become legitimate self-confidence. The law of animus and anima. You contain your opposite. Jung's third law. Every man carries an inner woman, anima, and every woman carries an inner man, animus. Your psychological completeness depends on integrating these contradictory energies. Jung observed that we deny half of our psychological nature based on gender conditioning. Men repress qualities considered feminine, like sensitivity and intuition. Women repress qualities considered masculine, like assertiveness and cold logic. But this repression creates imbalance. The denied energy manifests in projections. Men seek women who express their repressed anima. Women seek men who express their denied animus. Analyze Leonardo da Vinci, an example of animus and anima integration. He combined scientific precision and mathematical logic, animus, with artistic sensitivity and creative intuition, anima. This integration made him a multidimensional genius. Contrast this with historical figures who completely denied one side. Brutal conquerors who couldn't access compassion, or sensitive artists who couldn't make practical decisions. Both lived incomplete lives. In the business world, leaders who integrate animus and anima are more effective. They combine logical decisions with emotional intelligence, strategy with empathy. In relationships, people who integrate their internal opposites are less dependent on partners to feel complete. They don't project their unmet psychological needs onto others. First tactic: identify which energy you most repress. If you're excessively logical, practice accessing intuition and emotion. If you're excessively emotional, develop structured thinking. Second tactic: observe your romantic projections. The qualities you most admire in potential partners are probably denied aspects of yourself that you need to develop internally. The law of individuation. You are a process, not a product. Jung's fourth law. Individuation is the process of becoming who you really are, not through self-discovery, but through conscious self-creation. Jung revolutionized the concept of identity by realizing we don't have a fixed true self waiting to be discovered. Instead, we have potentials that can be developed or neglected. Individuation is the active process of integrating all aspects of our psyche, persona, shadow, animus, anima into a conscious and balanced personality. It's the work of a lifetime. Jung frequently used alchemy as a metaphor. Alchemists didn't just seek to transform common metal into gold. They sought to transform themselves through the process. Consider Jung's own journey. He began as a conventional doctor, but through his confrontation with the unconscious, including dreams, visions, and dialogue with his inner voices, he individuated into a unique figure who transcended traditional categories of psychiatrist, philosopher, and mystic. Modern culture often sells the idea that you should find yourself as if your identity were buried treasure. But Jung shows us that we must create ourselves through conscious choices and integration of opposites. This applies to careers. Instead of looking for your passion, you develop passion through mastery and purpose. It applies to relationships. Instead of finding your soulmate, you become someone capable of mature love. First tactic: stop asking, "Who am I?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" Individuation is an active process, not passive discovery. Second tactic: practice daily integration. Every situation is an opportunity to consciously choose how to react, integrating different aspects of your personality in a balanced way. So far, we've established the foundations of Jungian psychology. You've understood that your persona shapes your reality, that your shadow holds hidden power over you, that you carry opposing energies in balance, and that your identity is a process of conscious creation. These are the fundamental pillars for understanding the fragmented nature of the human psyche. But this is just the beginning of the journey. Now we'll dive into the deeper and more disturbing implications of Jung's work. The next laws are not for those who prefer comfortable illusions. We'll explore how your unconscious complexes govern your life, how the collective unconscious programs your behaviors, and finally, the most difficult truth to accept, how you can integrate all of this into an authentic existence. Prepare yourself, because what comes next will challenge everything you think you know about control and free will. The law of complexes. You are governed by subpersonalities. Jung's fifth law. You are not a unified personality. You are a committee of autonomous complexes, each with its own agenda, memories, and behavioral patterns. Jung discovered that the psyche is more like a parliament than a monarchy. Complexes are groups of ideas, emotions, and memories that organize around a central theme, usually formed by traumatic or significant experiences. These complexes operate semi-independently. When activated, they literally take over your consciousness, making you act in ways that seem foreign to your normal personality. You've experienced this. Moments where you later thought, "That didn't seem like me." Examine the case of Sally Beauchamp, studied by psychologist Morton Prince. Sally manifested multiple distinct personalities, but Jung realized this was just an extreme version of what happens in all of us. Each of Sally's personalities had different memories, different preferences, even different handwriting. But in reality, these were complexes that had become so powerful they could completely dominate her consciousness. The difference between Sally and normal people was just a matter of degree. In the professional environment, you might have a competence complex that makes you transform into a different person during presentations. In relationships, an abandonment complex might make you act possessively in ways your rational mind doesn't approve of. On social media, different platforms can activate different complexes. You might be one person on LinkedIn, completely different on Twitter, and yet another on Instagram. First tactic, map your complexes by observing dramatic changes in mood or behavior. What situations make you feel like a completely different person? Second tactic, dialogue with your complexes. Jung literally conversed with his sub-personalities. When you feel a complex activated, ask internally, what are you trying to protect me from? What do you need? Treat them as internal advisors, not enemies. The law of the collective unconscious. You are programmed by ancestral patterns. Jung's sixth law. Beyond your personal unconscious, you carry a collective unconscious, a deeper layer of the psyche containing universal patterns of behavior that govern all humanity. Jung discovered that certain images, themes, and patterns appear in all human cultures regardless of contact between them. He called these patterns archetypes, inherited psychological structures that shape how we perceive and react to the world. Archetypes aren't just abstract concepts. They are active forces in your psyche, influencing your relationships, ambitions, fears, and decisions in ways you rarely consciously recognize. Consider the hero archetype present in all cultures. Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia, Hercules in Greece, Beowulf among the Anglo-Saxons, the modern fairy tales of Star Wars. These stories aren't cultural coincidences. They emerge because the hero archetype is active in the collective unconscious. More importantly, this archetype is active in you. When you feel the need to overcome challenges or prove your worth, you're being moved by this ancestral pattern. In modern marketing, the most effective campaigns activate archetypes. Apple uses the rebel archetype. Disney uses the innocent archetype. Nike uses the hero archetype. In relationships, you're not just interacting with a person. You're interacting with the archetypes they activate in you. The father figure, the great mother, the lover, the sage, all influence how you perceive and respond to others. First tactic, identify which archetypes are most active in your life. Do you tend to play the role of the caregiver, the explorer, the creator? Recognizing your dominant archetypes helps you understand your deeper motivations. Second tactic, use archetypes consciously. If you need to develop leadership, activate the king archetype. If you need creativity, activate the artist archetype. Archetypes are powerful psychological tools when used consciously. The law of synchronicity. You are connected to patterns beyond causality. Jung's seventh law. Synchronicity. Meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by cause and effect, but reveal deeper connections between your psyche and the external world. Jung realized that our worldview based solely on causality is incomplete. There exists another organizing principle in the universe, meaning. Synchronistic events occur when internal states align with external circumstances in meaningful but not causal ways. This isn't cheap mysticism. Jung observed synchronicity in his clinical practice, moments where the patient's psychological state was reflected in external events in ways statistically impossible to be coincidences. Jung documents a famous case. A patient who had built extremely rigid psychological defenses reported a dream about a golden scarab beetle. During the next session, while she was describing the dream, Jung heard a tapping on the window. It was a golden scarab beetle trying to get in. This synchronistic event broke the patient's rational defenses in a way that years of analysis couldn't. It wasn't causality that created the cure. It was the meaning of the synchronistic moment. In personal development, synchronicities often occur when you're aligned with your individuation process. You might casually encounter the right book, the right person, or the right opportunity at the exact moment you're ready for them. In the business world, successful entrepreneurs often report coincidences that were actually synchronicities, moments where their internal state of preparation met external opportunities in seemingly magical ways. First tactic, develop attention to patterns. When you notice repeated coincidences, ask what internal state they might be reflecting. Second tactic, cultivate receptivity. Synchronicity requires a mind that can perceive meaning beyond linear logic. Practice moments of mental quietude where you can notice subtle connections between your internal states and external events. The law of final integration. You become real through the tension of opposites. Jung's eighth and final law. True psychological maturity doesn't come from resolving contradictions, but from learning to hold opposing tensions simultaneously. What Jung called the transcendent function. The immature mind seeks consistency, wants to always be strong, always rational, always moral. But Jung discovered that the mature psyche is paradoxical. It can hold love and anger, trust and caution, strength and vulnerability simultaneously. The transcendent function emerges when you stop trying to resolve opposites and begin to dance with them. This creates a third position, not a synthesis, but a capacity to inhabit contradictions productively. Consider Winston Churchill, a man who embodied extreme contradictions. He was simultaneously an inspiring leader and a profound depressive, which he called his black dog. He was brave in war and vulnerable in private. He was a visionary and a ruthless pragmatist. Churchill didn't try to resolve these contradictions, he used them. His darkness gave him empathy to understand Nazi evil. His vulnerability made him more human in the people's eyes. His contradictions made him a complete leader. In the modern world, we're pressured to have a consistent personal brand. But truly effective leaders are paradoxical. They can be tough and compassionate, visionary and practical, confident and humble as the situation demands. In relationships, mature people can love deeply while maintaining independence, can be vulnerable without losing strength, can forgive without becoming doormats. First tactic, identify your most tense internal polarities. Instead of choosing one side, practice accessing both consciously as appropriate. Second tactic, cultivate paradoxical capacity. When facing difficult decisions, ask not which option is right, but how can I honor valid truths on both sides of this tension? We've traveled a profound journey through the architecture of the human psyche. We discovered that you are not who you think you are. You are a performance that became real through the persona. You are also what you deny through the shadow. You contain opposing energies that must be integrated through animus and anima. We understood that you are an ever-evolving individuation process, governed by semi-autonomous complexes, programmed by ancestral archetypes, connected to synchronistic patterns, and capable of transcending contradictions through creative tension. Together, these laws form a complete map for navigating the complexity of human existence. They reveal that human consciousness is not a monolith, but a rich and multifaceted ecosystem. This knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can be used to manipulate others through understanding their shadows and complexes. It can be used to hide behind even more sophisticated masks. Or it can be used for what Jung intended, the development of a genuinely individuated personality. The choice, as always, rests in your hands. Use this knowledge to protect yourself from manipulation, to better understand your own unconscious motivations, and to develop more authentic relationships, but never to crush others or to avoid responsibility for your actions. Remember, individuation is not self-indulgence. It's the hard work of becoming consciously responsible for all aspects of your psyche, both the illuminated and the shadowy ones. In the comments, share which of these 8 Jungian laws most resonated with you and why. What aspect of your own psyche did you recognize through this analysis? Your reflection can help others on their own individuation journey. If this exploration of the depths of the human psyche resonates with you, subscribe to the channel to continue unraveling the secrets of human consciousness. Together, we'll continue mapping the unexplored territories of the mind, and your like is the signal that this knowledge has value, that it's worth preserving and sharing the psychological wisdom that can transform lives. Until the next journey into ourselves.